Hello all, this is Jason Zaidama from the International Christian Maritime Association. Seafarers welfare providers around the world are trying to confront the challenge of the coronavirus. And I'm joined today by Roger Harris, who is Executive Director of ISWAN, who is among the organizations that are trying to deal with this crisis. Welcome, Roger, to this conversation.
Thank you, Jason. It's good to be talking to you today.
So ISWAN is the International Seafarers Welfare and Assistance Network. It's based just outside of London, UK. ISWAN runs Seafarer Help, which is a 24-hour multilingual helpline, and also administers the Seafarers Emergency Fund. Before we get into the Seafarers Emergency Fund, which is really the heart of what I want to talk about in the next few minutes, Roger, can you tell us a bit about ISWAN and also the Seafarer Helpline?
Sure, Jason. Yeah, the ISWAN, we were formed 7 years ago, and ISWAN was the result of the merger of two previous organizations, the International Committee on Seafarers Welfare, that did various kind of projects and was a kind of strategic organization, and the International Seafarers Assistance Network, which ran Seafarer Help. So we came together, as I said, 7 years ago, and we run various projects and programs, mainly around the health and well-being of seafarers. So Seafarer Help is the kind of biggest program. We have about over 3,000 cases a year, and it takes a variety of different calls from seafarers. But in the last few years, we've concentrated a bit more around mental well-being. So the team are trained up, counselling skills, suicide prevention skills. And there's more calls around seafarers with mental concern about their mental well-being. But we also take general calls, information calls about where the nearest seafarer centre is, and that type of information that we provide. And then we also have, we're doing more, as I said, on mental health. We produce some self-help guides on mental well-being, and we're starting to do training on mental well-being now, particularly for maritime companies.
Can you give us a sense, in the last few weeks since the coronavirus crisis has become global, what are some of the top concerns that seafarers have when they're calling into the Seafarer Helpline?
Yeah, well, on Seafarer Help, I mean, we've had a more than doubling, almost tripling of cases that have come in. It's mainly around, to begin with, around seafarers wanting to be repatriated. Their contracts are being extended. They wanted to end the contract, wanted to go back home, back to their families, but for various reasons they weren't allowed to get off the vessel, or even if they could and get to the airport, with various countries like India being locked down, they couldn't fly to India. Issues about getting back to the Philippines. And I think now it's also seafarers recognizing that they're going to be stuck on board a vessel or in a country. It's now, feeling anxious and feeling stressed about their families back home, particularly in India and the Philippines, where the virus is starting to spread. So not only are they concerned about their own welfare and well-being and health, they're beginning to be more concerned about their families as well. So they want to get back there. And as I understand it now, there's an agreement for contracts to be extended to the 15th of May. So one of the things we've done, we've produced a video that deals with some of these issues. We've done a video with a psychologist that looks at some of the challenges seafarers are facing and what they can do about it as well.
So one of the key programs that you administer is the Seafarers Emergency Fund. Can you tell us a bit about the Seafarers Emergency Fund and how it's funded and what funds are actually available at this time?
Yeah, the fund was started around 10 years ago by TK Foundation, and then the ITF Seafarers Trust donated funds to it. So TK and the ITF Seafarers Trust were the main driving forces behind it, and then other funders have come in, such as Seafarers UK and the Trafigura Foundation. And it's set up as a fund really of last resort. It's there for unforeseen emergencies that no other funders or another funding can sorry. It was set up as a kind of emergency fund last resort, where no one else would support the seafarer. It's got certain criteria that individuals can't apply to. It has to be an organisation that applies on behalf of a seafarer or a group of seafarers, and then organisations such as a welfare organisation or a union can apply to the fund, and the fund gives grants up to $5,000. And it's been used over the last 10 years or so for a variety of purposes, for seafarers who've been abandoned and in port, and the cases where seafarers have been aboard a vessel that's been abandoned for over a year, so it's been used to provide food and water and phone cards. It's been used for medical expenses, for when seafarers can't afford medical bills. It's also been used to fly family members where a seafarer was seriously ill, I think in Canada, and a Filipino seafarer, so it's used to fly his wife over to be at his bedside because he had he was critically ill. So it's been used for a variety of purposes, and it was used during Typhoon Haiyan. We launched an appeal, and we raised over I think $110,000, and that went initially to provide communication for seafarers back home, Filipino seafarers, to make sure their families were well after the aftermath of Typhoon Haiyan, and then it was used in some reconstruction projects in the Philippines. And now with the COVID-19 pandemic, we've received quite a lot of funding from the funders to support seafarers who are affected by the pandemic. So far at the moment, we're supporting 500 seafarers in Manila who were repatriated back to Manila, but who can't get back to their homes in the provinces, who are living in dormitories. It's also some of those seafarers were in Manila there to upgrade their certificates or for training, and once the lockdown came back in the Philippines, they can't get back. So we're supporting 500 seafarers by feeding them, because all the restaurants are closed, food outlets are closed down in Manila. And we're supporting at the moment about 50 Indian seafarers who are stranded in the UK because they're running short of funds. They don't have funds for their rent, don't have funds for food, and India is now locked down until the 3rd of May. So we're looking to see how we can support more of those, and that's been done through the Mission to Seafarers. So at the moment, we're starting to get more applications into the fund, and we expect to have a lot more over the coming weeks and months.
So what guidance would you give to those who might be listening to this video who are from a seafarers welfare organization? What key guidance might you give them to apply for funding if they believe they have a case that could be supported?
Well, first of all, the criteria and application forms on our website, on the seafarerswelfare.org website, and there's also an application form. We try to keep the form fairly basic and straightforward, so there's not pages and pages of information that needs to be provided. So organisations can normally apply up to $5,000, but given the special circumstances, we'll be able to. We can accept grants, applications for grants larger than $5,000, particularly if it's covering a whole number of seafarers, such as more than 10. As I said, the criteria is on the website. And what happens when the application goes in? Although it's an ISWAN fund, we use independent advisors to decide on whether the application is valid or not. So there is a bit of independence from ISWAN. So there's a kind of a due process there. So the advisors say whether they feel the application meets the criteria or not. And one thing I would encourage organisations to do is to read the criteria and also to provide as much information as possible, so we don't have to keep going back and forward. I mean, again, I stress that the form is quite basic, quite simple, but we do need the applicants to provide as much information as they can when they submit the form. It just saves a bit of to and fro and speeds the process up.
Well, Roger, thank you so much for telling us a bit about ISWAN and Seafarer Help and the Seafarers Emergency Fund. Thank you for pointing us toward the website. When I share this video, also I'll share a bit of information about where the best places are to go to get more information from your website. So thank you so much and for being available to be on this call.
Thanks, Jason. I really appreciate it, and good luck to you. Thank you very much.